Welcome to John's Tours. This is a series of videos about Chester and its famous walls. Let's start our tour from the Old Dee Bridge. The Old Dee Bridge stands roughly where the old Roman bridge used to be. What we see today was built in the late 1380s. The bridge was the main crossing point between North Wales and Chester, England, a bridge that was closely guarded. The bridge was a very important strategic choke point in the medieval ages. On the far side by Hanbridge, the bridge was well defended by an outer gate tower, and on the Chester side by a well-fortified entrance. As we continue our walk, we can see on our right the Neo-Georgian style County Hall, designed by the city architect Mainwaring and built between 1938 to 57. The stonework was selected by Giles Gilbert Scott, and the stone comes from Derbyshire and Lincolnshire. Today the building is part of Chester University. If we go back in time, this area was inhabited by Skinner's warehouses and Glover's houses, all to do with the leather trade. The leather trade was very important to Chester and employed 1/5 of the workforce in the late Middle Ages and early modern era. We come to the castle, and Chester in 1070 was probably the last town to be conquered in England by William the Conqueror. He ordered the castle to be built a motte and bailey style castle. A motte is a raised ground on which was surmounted a timber tower. The bailey was a courtyard surrounded by a protective ditch and palisade, and the palisade is a defensive wall made of wooden stakes. The site chosen for the castle was a small hill south side of the city that overlooked the bridge, the harbour, the estuary, and the castle itself dominated the town. William designated his nephew Hugh Lupus, nicknamed Hugh the Wolf, to be the first Earl of Chester. Now these Earls of Chester were given County Palatine status. This meant that the Earls of Chester were noblemen who, although they swore allegiance to the king, had the power to rule the county independent of the king. These county palatines were normally set up in border conflict areas, especially between England and Wales. We have no records of what the castle might have looked like in the 12th century, but the timber framework was soon rebuilt in stone. We do have a plan of what the castle framework would have looked like in the late Middle Ages. The last Earl of Chester died in 1237, and the earldom was annexed by the crown. All future first sons of the King of England would be given amongst others, the title of the Earl of Chester, and today's Earl of Chester is none other than Prince Charles. Chester's castle has had many a royal visitor, but perhaps the most famous is when King Richard II was held prisoner here by the future King Henry IV. Today, only the flag tower and the strangely named Agricola Tower remain from the medieval ages. By the late 18th century, the castle was in a poor state, and the council employed the architect Thomas Harrison to completely redevelop the area. We can now show you a picture of what it looked like in the early 19th century. The castle development has been described by the famous architect and critic Nicholas Pevsner as one of the most powerful monuments of the Greek Revival architectural movement in the whole of England. Praise indeed. The entrance is by a propylaeum, a massive gateway of 4 Doric monolithic columns, 18 foot high, with a portico. This is flanked by 2 small pediment lodges. The entrance of the propylaeum lines up directly in line with the entrance to the portico of the Shire Hall. The Shire Hall is a central block made out of white manly stone, and in the first pillar is a lead box containing coins of the day and a Wedgwood urn. The 2 wings on each side of the Shire Hall contains a barracks and an armoury. The barracks is now a museum and tells the story of 4 famous Cheshire regiments. In the car park there's a statue of Queen Victoria by Pomeroy. As we leave the castle, we see the Grosvenor Bridge, opened in 1832 by Princess Victoria. It was at one time the longest single-span bridge in the world, and the designer was Thomas Harrison. As we now cross the road, the statue in front of us is of Field Marshal Stapleton Cotton. We pass the elegant Abode Hotel. From the late 12th century, where the Abode Hotel stands, it was the site of St. Mary's Nunnery until the dissolution of the monasteries in the 1530s, and hence the name of the road Nuns Road that we will walk down. And now we can see the famous Rudee Chester's racecourse. Rude means cross, E means island. According to legend, the cross marks the burial site of a statue of the Virgin Mary. The base of the cross also marked the boundary of the Benedictine nunnery. The cross was known as the Rudee, the cross of the Dee, and this was to distinguish it from St. Peter's Cross in the middle of town. The site was also the home of the original Chester Midsummer Watch Parade. In Roman times, the Rudee is where the Roman harbour used to be, but even then, over 2,000 years ago, we had the silting of the Dee River. If you pop down here, you can see the remains of the old Roman wall. Due to all the silting, the Rudee was eventually reclaimed from the river. The area was then used for sports and in particular football. The football games became very violent, and the Mayor of Chester in the 1530s, called Major G, outlawed the football games, and he established a racecourse there. The racecourse has the distinction of being the oldest racecourse in Britain. And as the years went by, the race meetings became one of the social events in Chester and Cheshire County in the whole of the year's calendar. Mayor G is remembered to this day by having a race called after him called the Henry G Stakes. His name is also remembered by some people who fondly call horse race meetings by the name of the Gigi's. The area to our right-hand side used to be land occupied by the Dominicans, nicknamed the Blackfriars, and further on the Franciscans, nicknamed the Greyfriars, and we remember them today by the various street names. Between the early 13th century and the dissolution of the monasteries in 1539, the friars became very much part of the Chester community. Many a lively tale can be told of their exploits. We now come to the Watergate. At one time, this was the main entrance to the city for ships offloading their cargoes. Tolls and taxes were collected here by members of the Stanley family. However, again due to the silting of the Dee, the gate lost its importance, and in the 1780s the gate was replaced by what we see today, designed by Joseph Turner. Thank you for watching John's Tours, and if you'd like to know more about my tours, please check out my website at www.johnstours.co.uk. Thank you.